Thank you all for joining us for Pando Days. My name is Eugene Shirley. I'm the president of Pando Populist. We're here for the third of 4 Pando Days premier events stretching across this week. Today, we'll be hearing from the Otis, LA Trade Tech, and Cal Arts teams. The sustainability challenge they're taking on, community, and strengthening it through green space for recreation and regeneration. The location is a 2,500 square foot section of streetscape in Pico Union, and the idea is reimagining it into a thriving pocket park. Each team has explored the challenge in a different way. Our consulting partner heads the Pico Union Housing Corporation, Gloria Farias. We'll hear from Gloria shortly. Most of you joining this event today know of the not so secret goal we have here at Pando to connect educators and their students to a big plan, the plan that really matters, the Los Angeles County Sustainability Plans, the boldest regional sustainability plan in the nation. With Pando Days, we aim to catalyze projects that offer innovative solutions to the problems facing the Southland, problems of community, shelter, transportation, food, and more. The good news, we're succeeding. 4 of last year's Pando Days projects were picked up by outside funders. To date, 12 colleges and universities from across the region are participating, innovating 21 separate projects. Now, the best news, you're seeing the results of Pando Days 21 premiered for you this week, coming from the participating colleges and universities that have dedicated full courses, studios, or labs to this work. Then on January 16, we hope you all join us for the conclusion of the Pando Days 21 season with our online finale. At the finale, we'll celebrate all the projects and learn what the judges think and where they would like to direct cash prizes. You'll also get to hear from all of our consulting partners about the plans they have for helping to move the best projects forward. So let's get started. I'm delighted that Gloria is with us today. If you know anything about how Los Angeles operates, you know she is a fact on the ground for positive change. Gloria, thank you so much for your Pando Days involvement. I know today's challenge focuses at the heart of your neighborhood, the nexus of your relationships and your organization's own backyard. Please say a few words and set up the critical importance of this challenge and the task as you defined it for the schools to focus on, that of helping to implement LA County's regenerative goals through a pocket park. Gloria? Gloria, we can't quite hear you. Do your unmute there. Gloria, you're still, it's still a mute problem. Okay. Gloria, maybe we'll work with you offline on that here in just a second, but let's see. Can you try again there on the mute matter? No, okay. Gloria, we'll come back to you just as soon as we can. Let's go right ahead and get into the teams that have focused over the fall term on innovating the new ideas that they have for the Pico Union Pocket Park. Each team will have 10 minutes to present its project, followed. Oh, Gloria.
Hi.
There you are. Okay, we'll rewind and start in. Gloria, over to you.
Okay.
Take a minute.
All right.
And just set up the challenge for us.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm so super excited. The community is excited. The youth are excited. And you don't know how much that park will mean to all of us. that and when Gloria Molina, our councilwoman, was in our councilwoman there, she closed the streets because of all the drugs and the violence that we have in our community. So this will make our children learn, and I'm excited about the teachers that they kind of embraced us and adopted us. And I'm really excited to bring some architects and engineers out of Pico Union because of you guys and your projects. So I'm really excited, and I want to be part of Pando for the future. I want to really enjoy your guys' activities and what you do for the communities that really, really need it. So I am 100% aboard with you guys, and I am super excited. And I welcome you to the Pico Union community that is so much in need.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And we're delighted and honored to be part of your community and to welcome you into ours. And I join you in eagerness to look forward to the presentations that we're going to have today.
So am I. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. And then, Gloria, at the end, after we have the presentations, it'd be wonderful for you to come back on, and we look forward to having some comments from you then. That'd be great.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, first up, Otis College of Art and Design. If you're thinking, haven't I seen Otis before this week? That's absolutely right, because they have ambitiously taken on 2 Pando Days projects this year, which is extraordinarily impressive, with many thanks. Their submission today for the Pico Union Pocket Park location is P3, an architectural green print. The idea, a project rooted in art and public practice that facilitates environmental justice and cultural programming. Professor Gina Vallona leads the team. Gina, take it away.
Good afternoon and welcome to Green Print. My name is Gina Vallona, founder and principal of Art and Public Practice and creative lead at Otis College of Art and Design. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the Our County Sustainability Office, Pandopoulos, Gloria Farias, and the Pico Union Housing Corp staff, captains and community members, Richard Shelton, Lena Lightman, Julie Schultz, and the Otis College Creative 2021 teams. I'd also like to give special thanks to my assistant this semester, Ashley Cardosi, who helped bring all of the concepts to visualization for the final park design that you'll see today. Lastly, I'd like to thank mis dos amigas and colleagues, Professora Marcela Oliva and Shannon Scrofano, who inspired, shared, and supported me throughout this process. Our project synopsis: Green Print is an architecture project rooted in art plus public practice that facilitates environmental justice and cultural programming. Because the underserved communities are so lacking in green space, our project aims to catalyze political action and influence policy change by designing a green print to serve as an ecological template for the transformation of small hardscapes to urban parks. Our design for this challenge is informed by integrated civic engagement, creative strategy, and the creation of an ongoing community feedback and assessment plan to ensure long-term success. How might we develop more urban green space in disadvantaged areas and meet multiple sustainability and community needs where residents can thrive? The challenge, the RFP challenge, asked to submit a best use proposal and or an infrastructure design and or an ongoing community engagement strategy. For this presentation, we will present the best use proposal, an infrastructure design, and the PDF that we're submitting for review will also outline a community engagement strategy and a mobile app with a disaster preparedness plan. We took a design thinking approach over the course of 2021. I led 3 teams of art and design students through the spring, summer, and fall semester. And we looked at the project in a 3-phase process: inspiration, ideation, and implementation.
Gina, sorry, let me just interrupt. Are you anticipating that you're sharing screen right now, or are you going to shortly?
I'm seeing that I'm sharing my screen. Are you not seeing my screen?
No, you're not. And so, yeah, we just wanted to let you know.
I'm so sorry about that. That is terrible. Can you see my screen now?
Okay, that's good.
You can.
Yep.
Can you see it now?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
sorry about that. So
No,
here's
that's fine.
How might we, the challenge?
I think everything was clear.
Okay, great.
So I think you can go right ahead. But
Wonderful.
I just wanted you to know. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
So our case study, Pico Union District, develops low-income housing that integrates a holistic approach to neighborhood development. And we really took that to heart and tried to incorporate a holistic approach with our project as well. Okay, some case study research and cultural insights about the area. We learned that this area and community supports a collectivist culture, responsibility and accountability are shared. They value harmony and cooperation, children and family, and bonding often takes place over family, food, music, and humor. So what did this community need? What does this community need? In short, they need short and long-term community engagement opportunities that support health and advocacy, community representation in the site itself, acknowledgement and use of community assets and constituents, an infrastructure design that's multifunctional and multi-purpose, and the site should allow for educational, health, respite, play, and connection opportunities. So the green print, our goal was to design a park in response to these community needs. And we were really looking at goals 3, 6, and 11 of the R County Sustainability Plan. The key features of the design will feature for security and safety, it's an enclosed park. That was a request. The exterior walls are have murals. We're anticipating there'll be future collaboration with the graffiti lab for that. There's an interior chalkboard that can be used for community workshops and creative expression. We design multi-use table and chairs that are sustainable and arrangeable, a retractable stage with 2 fold-out options depending on need, a retractable screen for presentations and screenings, a nature-based children's area with a 2nd level to optimize small space, vertical planters and garden boxes for edible food gardens, walls and fencing, safety, and a design that reflects the community, and then signage will be available in Spanish and English. We also talked a lot about sustainability throughout the project and how that might be integrated as the project develops and goes on, and how the site is used once it's built. So for example, the murals might create workshops using water-based spray paints, the chalkboard, we would get non-toxic veggie chalk. We've pre-screened a lot of vendors. So with the park, all of those elements of the park have sustainability in mind. We approached the project in a 3-pronged way. Today, I'm just going over the architectural and infrastructure design. And again, the design deliverables will include the engagement strategy and the Map and Go mobile app for disaster preparedness. Okay, so here's the site. It's 2,500 square feet section on West 12th Street and South Alvarado. Our site plan and aerial overview, the 2 solid walls on the east and south were strategically placed and are taller to reduce noise pollution, gas station traffic pollution reduction. As I mentioned, the community murals would be engaged in collaboration with Graffiti Lab. The perforated walls on the west and north give visibility to homes, neighbors, and the alley that leads to Pico Union Housing Corp. And it also allows for ability to grow foliage and greenscaping. We chose a sustainable building material, which is cast iron for the build. So this isn't just an aerial view of what the park itself would look like. These murals are of course placeholders, and we would look forward to collaborating on the design of those with Graffiti Lab. Here's an interior from the alley view. You can see this interior wall. We have one design here throughout, but as we move forward, we'd really love to create a design for each of these decorative elements based on the alley themes that represent the community. And here is a project that I worked on in near Silver Lake, near the LA River, where you can see this design with iron is not only beautiful, but it's structural, it's secure, and it has a beautiful aesthetic. Here's the entrance to the park. You can see that the chalk wall is here. We pulled out this retractable stage with the screen. We have the rearrangeable tables and then the children's play area. We also left the existing trees that are surrounding the site. The south-facing interior wall would be a multi-purpose wall. The side panels are vertical planter boxes. They would provide green beautification, attract pollinators, natural healing herbs and aromatherapy could be part of the design. And then they'd also provide seasonal engagement opportunities like planting workshops, food gardens, and the chalk wall could serve as a community art and workshops with the veggie chalk. The multi-purpose seating and rearrangeable tables and benches will be used for audience seating, parties, picnics, presentations, screenings, studies, and workshops, and we'll present the layouts later on in this presentation. Here's a view of the screen and the stage pulled up. This will allow more green space for relaxation and respite when those areas aren't being used, since it is only a 2,500 square foot footprint. These are two views of the stage. This is a view of the stage when it's pulled out halfway. We imagine it could be used for speaker series, solo or duet performances, exercise instruction. And then when it gets pulled out fully, bands or musicians might play. They might have community talent shows, special events, or theatrical performances. So this is an example of layout one. It would be everyday use with the benches and tables kind of opening up the space put towards the outer edges of the park, and how people might use the park for relaxation, nature, gardening, or picnics. This is another layout where you can see how the tables and benches are being rearranged for screenings or movies. Layout three kind of gives you an idea of what a community workshop might look like, where there is an artist or a community member teaching a workshop, and the tables and benches are focused right in front of the chalk wall. Here's layout four, with the stage pulled out just halfway. And we imagine that can be used for exercise classes or yoga, in our communication with Pico Union. All of these things and uses were really important to them. So we tried to incorporate all of their needs in this multi-purpose design. This is how we might imagine a speaker series or a small duet or band playing at the site. Oops, excuse me. This is layout six, where we imagine the stage being fully pulled out, and there might be a theatrical performance or mariachis or a larger band with more instruments, and people could be dancing and enjoying the music and connecting with each other. Oops, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry, this is sometimes on Zoom. This is the children's play area, an overview where we really wanted to make a natural looking play area. We are still in iteration of this, and we'd love to meet with the community. We're also thinking of developing a second level to optimize the space for the children. And then we also thought about and have just began to iterate this idea called Green Kids Thrive Club as part of an Our County plan to really get kids excited and develop ideas that are geared towards school-age children that could be developed with community engagement in mind and implemented with each pocket park. Our next steps would be to meet with Pico Union Housing Corp to review the design and iterate in depth, make revisions based on feedback and budget, iterate a final version, present it to the Pico Union captains and community for feedback, secure funding, hire a project manager, architect and developer, Gloria, hire manufacturers and vendors, and then develop an annual community engagement plan in collaboration with our county and the block captains. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Gina, thank you so much. I learned a ton. I also didn't know anything about veggie chalk. So now I know that exists. It's the most minor thing I learned, but nonetheless, that is something new.
We did have a lot of fun thinking through every element of sustainability so that the site was actually an educational structure, but then everything that's used through the site has an educational opportunity, all the way down to veggie chalk.
I think that's wonderful. I see John Cobb's in the session here, and I know that kind of systematic, holistic thinking is near and dear to John's heart. So here to respond to your project is Allison Hirsch. Allison is a landscape theorist, historian, and designer and professor at USC. She's pinch hitting for a member of the CSO task force today. Allison, thank you so much for stepping in. Your research and background gives you lots of ways to think about the Otis project, I'm sure. What questions do you have for Gina?
Yes, thank you so much, Gina. And thank you, Pando team, for making me the pinch hitter. I also was unaware of the veggie chalk, so something you learn every day. But obviously this was a really multifaceted project that had so much depth to it. And what I appreciated so much is the multifunctionality of it. I am a landscape architect and I'm head of what's called the Landscape Justice Initiative. So sort of this geography is not that far from USC, and the issues that the prompt offered are significant to me. My questions, I had two probably primary questions, and one of them might actually give you a chance to talk a little bit about that PDF that you will ultimately be uploading, because you seem to hint that you were going to arrive there at some point. But as someone who has worked in the public realm on both large and small scale public projects with communities, and including in this area, I was curious at how you anticipate. What I think is wonderful about, I'll just back up, what I think is wonderful about the project is also that you are thinking systemically. So you're actually not just focused on this one site, but a set of processes through which you could imagine intervening in a variety of sites. But what I was curious about is how you foresaw the process to figure out how one of these pocket parks, or even this particular pocket park, reflects the community. Because I think that you said that in the beginning, that you were very cautious of or careful about ensuring that these places actually reflect the community. And I asked that largely because inevitably in public projects, there's going to be conflict. And, I've had experience with interesting forms of conflict in this area, whether it was with conflict with unhoused populations, or, that you said this project is mostly geared towards children and family, understanding that there's sort of different conceptions of community. So that was my first question. And the second question, because I'm building off a model from yesterday I attended, so I know that I'm supposed to only talk once and then you answer. So I'll just say both and feel free to answer either or both. But, as a landscape architect, I'm also really focused on the planted world as well. And, understanding that environmental justice was part of the primary mission statement. I'm curious about, I imagine that you're aware of Callan Virus Green and the correlation between sort of park poor neighborhoods and pollution burdens. I'm curious about how both issues of environmental justice through both tree canopy, other forms of the planted landscape might actually play into this as part of facilitating that quest towards environmental justice. And I ask that mostly because, this is a pollution burdened area. And, the palm trees that existed probably aren't doing as much as they possibly could that are shown in the renderings.
Yeah, thank you for those questions and for being here, Allison. So, this design, we have a very small architecture program at Otis. And this past semester, I didn't have any architects. Thankfully, my TA had some experience using Rhino. However, throughout the year, we were so privileged and grateful to connect directly with Gloria and the site captains and the community and present them iterations of the park. And so every time that we did, we tried to listen really deeply and understand all of the needs and all of the varying needs and how those might work in a very small footprint. So that was one of the reasons why we kind of tried to integrate all of this multi-use, multi-purpose functionality in the design to be as flexible as possible and also respond to as many needs as possible within this really small footprint. As far as ecological justice and the planted world, we came up with a couple of solutions. We didn't see it in this rendering, but so we did, we were concerned about the noise pollution and being so close to the gas station. We didn't want to plant a lot of big trees because we were worried about losing just square footage on the ground. But we did think about, having these vertical planter gardens or these green walls that would go vertically, and then having those used not only for aesthetic and health purposes, but also planning, using those and having these garden boxes on the side as kind of ongoing community engagement opportunities with food and gardening workshops. And so we imagined, unfortunately, we have a small amount of time, but we imagined that once the park was built, we developed like these 5 themes for ongoing community engagement that look at the goals of the sustainability plan. And then community members, artists, designers, either could be guests or, the community itself could work with Pico Union and develop these workshops based on their local knowledge, their concerns. And that's how we kind of really approached it. And then we also looked at LADWP has a native plant program, and we thought that would be a great connection because often they do workshops and they offer those lists for free. And sometimes they even offer the plants and trees for free, and they have apartment workshops. And so we really thought of developing those types of partnerships that could provide support as programming moving throughout time.
Thank you so much, Allison and Gina. both. Very appreciative. Up next is Los Angeles Trade Technical College Architecture and its project Designed by Community, a unique toolkit to catalyze community participation in the design of public space. The idea is to empower Pico Union residents with the opportunity to participate in creating the park of their dreams. On the team lead is Professor Marcela Oliva. Marcela, we're hugely eager to see what you've come up with. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. So we appreciate this opportunity. We designed a Pico Union Park designed by community. We are in compliance with goal 3 and 6. We are work very close with the other 2 schools, and we are looking forward for a synergy. And we really appreciate the leadership and the vision of Pico Union Housing Corporation. And we have designed a park, a unique toolkit to catalyze community participation in the design of public space. These are the 5 categories that we will be covering. And as you guys know, LA Tech is very close to the location. And it's really a 20-minute walk or 5-minute drive. This is just to show you the areas on 12th Street and Alvarado, very close to the gas station, a lot of pedestrians. And our idea is to be changing the ground cover to allow using some pervious material to allow the water to go into the watershed. And we're gonna be combining it with activities for the design of the park. These are our partners. We have two classes, and we also have David Waite, which without him, I don't think the project could have happened, and also Studio MLA, and also a lot of alumni that have contributed. So Brittany and Dave will be presenting also. So what's the challenge? Why don't we have more parks? We have $90 billion in Los Angeles. There's a big shortage of parks. And we believe it's basically there's 2 things. The community doesn't feel it belongs to them. It doesn't feel they were part of the design team. So what we're doing here, we're actually creating a solution where we identify all possible activities that a park could have, 35 to 40. And then we created, we're beginning to create all the artificial intelligence where the community will be a designer, will be an architect, and will be an engineer. These will create more job opportunities because we will require more architects and engineers. So this will just accelerate. We need to create at least 1 pocket park per week due to the population growth. We're so below average. So here on the right, you can see a parametric driven design of how the community will be able to identify what they want in that particular park. So we're using Pico Union Park as a role model to a project that can be scalable and duplicable. Some might want to have an observation tower. Some might want to have a drinking fountain. Some might want to have 2 murals. So here's an example of how you have a grid inspired by biomimicry, and then you have a program where the community can drag and drop. And this is a quick example. You're gonna see about 10 solutions, and each solution has 3 or 4. So it's extremely scalable and duplicable.
Okay, so to retrace our steps here, Professor Oliva conceptualized this process as a game board with its pieces, the pieces being the programs we just talked about. So to design the game board, the students use patterns of biomimicry, which they trace in CAD, computer automated design software, using SketchUp. And so students experimented through patterns which provided a whole variety of pore sizes. And then after tracing these patterns, the students sat on them for a while and iterated them simply as drawings in and of themselves. So they played with the drawings as being capable of holding different tectonic properties. And what was so great of iterating this is it's totally void of scale and geography. Here's another example of how that played out in creating open space and tight space. So then after the drawing exercises, we stepped into the side for a moment and looked deliberately at the site. Here, as mentioned, is the 12th and Alvarado site. So the site analysis metrics such as shade, sound, vehicle hazards, and visibility are some of the biggest design movers and shakers. So we picked those out and we'll show you soon how those affected these line drawings. At the same time, the students processed the dimension requirements for unique elements throughout the park through precedent research and municipal code requirements. So the students were pretty much released to scour the internet for a whole bunch of kind of parcel moments which really hit home to them. Okay, so now as these pieces start to populate on the site, the students needed to manipulate that original drawing to fit these requirements. This first example is from Aaron, and you can see here the pieces or moments on the side as they populate. Different path arrangements, and we're just syncing our PowerPoint here. So you'll see different students' work come up after these yellow slides. Brittany's example here, you can see 4 iterations of using a Monstera plant as a design driver, engaging the alleyway as well as the street. And then what became interesting is Brittany's studies where she looked at the different programs and what could actually nest together, sit side by side, and which ones didn't work so well. And this kind of works algorithmically, but you absolutely have to have a designer in order to make this make sense. Christina's drawings here were particularly interesting to us as she would leave SketchUp intermittently to hand draw how this would work out and then return back to the software. And Marcos here shows another example of his studies. Ground plan, the last one we're going to show is Mateus's, which involved ground cover studies, almost like a pavement plan as that played with these different algorithmic areas. So as we talk about how this translates from plan to being a real kind of imaginable park, there's a whole lot more information we need, and I'll pass it off to Brittany here.
Sure, thanks, Dave. So as we move from 2D to 3D here, you can see that we have compiled a 3D warehouse based on all of the various student designs. And so this will ultimately help the community envision the park design. So here we can see shelves, stages, cooling centers, canopies, etc. Here we see more modular pieces and stages that students have designed. And so here we also did want to standardize some programmatic components across all student designs, such as the bioswale here, of course, to meet our goals. This is included in an effort to capture as much stormwater as possible. And we also utilize calscape.org just to sift through all of our various options for vegetation in the park. And so next here, we are going into the 3D schemas that our students have come up with. So here we have an example from Matthias, and you can see all of the various 3D elements in his design. Here goes another view of what that park might look like being used. So here we can see the canopy, the sculptural playground, the information booth of sorts, bench seating. And here goes one last example. And so here we get to see the different design iterations that the students have provided. And so this as well will help the community envision what programmatic layouts are possible to begin with. From there, the students will take one of the iterations and then go ahead and populate it with the 3D components that they designed. And so here goes another example. Christopher Berlioz, this is based off of a snowflake and your design here. And then this is another example. Here we see 3 more iterations here at the bottom. So for example, in this design, the running track is symbolized by the pink line there. And so we can see the various options that Debbie drew here provided for us. You can see all the various part components she included. And that is about it for Pando Days 2021 for LATTC.
And just really quick, is this idea of creating a platform where the community is the designer.
Well, thank you so much, Marcella, and to the team. Marcella, you've described this as a kit of parts in the past, and I see exactly what you're talking about here. That really comes across. Fascinating. Okay, Randy Britt is the CSO Task Force representative right now. Randy will want to ask you some questions, Marcella. Randy has spent much of his career devoted to sustainability, and he's former Chief Sustainability Officer at Vanner Construction. He's now working as a sustainability consultant. Randy, I know that you have a great deal of expertise and background at the intersection of building things and sustainability. And I'm sure when you've watched the presentation, lots of those ideas have come across your mind. You have 5 minutes, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my background is more the intersection of engineering rather than architecture, but a lot of years integrating with architects and engineers to design facilities, and did a lot of parks and park modifications with the city of LA, the county of LA, and also with LA Unified School District. So some questions do come to mind. The idea of a toolkit that would be designed specifically for this is intriguing. It seems to take some components of other design tools. The question that I have first, though, is in addition to sustainability, it encompasses a lot of other abilities, such as accessibility, availability, the ability to be able to maintain it, and maintainability and security. So those are the questions that I would have, is as you're developing you're using the tool to develop this kind of a site, how do you plan to incorporate the input from the community to address those specific issues?
That's a fabulous question, because that's why Pico Union Housing is such an ideal model for the nation, because the concept is that you will work directly. They will be the designers. The community will be the designers. We will have workshops at their communities, and they'll get to choose whatever grid they like, whatever program they like. So we will just be facilitating a system for them to design it, maintain it, operate it, and follow the entire life cycle of the building. So that's exactly the goal. Usually my experience is that the community is not given enough vocabulary and enough tools for them to participate. So by creating this platform of collaboration and this video game interface, that is becoming very affordable. I mean, a lot of people say, like, but do they have computers? But do they have this? But really, that's not an issue. There's very, very little investment for the outcome of the engagement that using technology can facilitate. And I know the city of LA has a lot of resources for that. So yeah, the whole idea is that they are their operators, they are the designers, and they also maintain it and assess it.
Okay. Getting consensus from a community, from my experience with LAUSD and with the city and the county, is a difficult proposition. How do you plan to try to arrive at a consensus, and which community groups do you attend to include to be as inclusive as possible for all the residents of the surrounding community?
Absolutely, and I think something that this Zoom and this pandemic has shown us is that there are some advantages of technology. So this platform, this video game will exist in a video game environment where everybody will have access. So it will be open to the community, it will be open to government agencies, and everybody will be able to see the model. So it's a building information model that quickly engineers, architects, ADA compliance, government agencies can quickly alter that model. So it's this virtual reality, augmented reality. We're working with some people from Harvard and MIT to host these game engines and these community park design in these platforms. And working with Otis and with CalArts, we're hoping to do a cohesive, kind of like we call it a mother deck now. So we can create a prototype for the nation.
Okay.
Thank you,
Those are the main
Randy.
questions I have, Izzy. Sure.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And thank you, Marcella. Extremely interesting. Okay, we're ready for our final presentation, which comes from the California Institute of the Arts, CalArts, Creating Equilibrium. The project asks, how can a creative current running through a community contribute to agency, resilience, and local ownership? The team lead on this is Shannon Scrofano. Professor Shannon Scrofano. Professor Scrofano, over to you.
Hi, everyone. We don't have professors at CalArts. I promise not to profess anything to you just now. But I wanted to say thank you, Jean, Shelley, Judith, Betsy, Pando folks, the LA County Office of Sustainability, and my amigas, Marcella and Gina, which I will thank again later. And just really appreciate everyone the opportunity to share some of the thinking and explorations that we've done at CalArts this semester. Briefly for context, we spent time on this Pando Days Pico Union Challenge through our class of the same name, Creating Equilibrium as our project title, with students from our programs in music technology, aesthetics and politics, creative producing and management, music composition, graphic design, film video, experimental sound practices, character animation, and experience design. Okay, let's see. The class meets once a week and we look at the state of climate crisis head on and explore ways that artists, designers, and culture workers can engage their practices and skills in response. So our approach to the Pico Union Challenge is very much in this vein. It is a menu of creative actions and translations intended to claim space in advance of a more permanent park. So before the park, music actions, growth and garden actions, collective creation, and actions that uplift local artists. Perhaps a big-hearted toolkit for expressing community resilience and self-generation. So our question here is, how can a creative current running through a community contribute to agency, resilience, and local ownership? And what is that value in times of stress or change? And we brought to bear on this question Shunryu Suzuki's idea that in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. And Per Espen Stoknes is thinking on how social action and stories shape new identities in relationship to future challenges. And we asked ourselves this question, and we think the answer is some combination of social cohesion, imagination and improvisation, readiness, and receptivity. So our approach, we were deeply moved by the work the Pico Union Housing Corporation, the Puede Center, and Graph Lab are doing under Gloria Faros' leadership, and the inspiring persistence of staff, block captains, and residents connecting to this anchoring network that's committed to building communication, mapping local resources, learning new skills, visually linking different blocks of the neighborhood through beautification of alleys, and preparing for future challenges. This is all work that's already happening. And for myself, I was equally inspired by the long-term visionary contributions from Professor Marcela Oliva and her students at LATTC and what they've made through their projects and presence in Pico Union's neighborhood, and the new energy from Pando Days 2020 that Gina Valona and her students from Otis have brought as well. And so in my class, we see this all as a living, breathing, adapting, nourishing, symbiotic mycelial network of people, place, and activity. Okay. Great. Our process. So 3 organizing ideas anchor our sequence of offerings: artist mapping, what we call the proto park, so the before the permanent park, and a culminating what if festival of, for, and by the neighborhood. Any of these actions that we're proposing could be taken on of their own accord in any neighborhood that might see affinity in them. And many of the ideas participate in a history of creative placekeeping and placemaking that have added to the livelihood and identity of communities worldwide. The right to shade, the right to safe public gathering space, to cleaner air, the right to play outside, especially for children, to learn new things, to be near nature, to encounter strangers, and to celebrate local cultural identities, and to have direct influence on local futures. There are more details in our supporting materials, but I want to take us briefly through the sequence together. Okay, so we start with, some of my slides are loading a little bit weird, so we'll hope they'll eventually arrive, but seeing possibilities. And each step in our process comes from its own what if question. And we begin with, I'm going to try to get it to load again. There it is. What if parks and community spaces evolved organically over time, informed by local input, environment, and participation? And this is not about diagnosing deficits. It's very much about making visible the active symbiosis within neighborhoods and Pico Union as an emergent case study. The second step is artist illumination, which asks, what if we could hold up artists and Block captains as active nutrients in the Pico Union ecosystem? And this step launches a process. It seems to help if I go back and forth, a process of identifying local artists and creating a collectible postcard project that documents interviews and images of these artists and their relationship to the neighborhood, illuminating them in an evolving archive. It also proposes creating a series of seasonal art and sound walks mapped onto the alley network where different disciplines are explored and celebrated: movement, dance, photography, painting, writing, music, etc. These can be synchronous or analog art walks, or geolocated and uploaded to the cloud to be experienced at any time. Next, acts of repair. I don't know why my backgrounds are disappearing. We're just going to call it animation. What if we mend our ground together in shades of gold, restoring it to emerge as better than new? Acts of repair is the first action in claiming this future park space as a place of beauty, gathering, and networked energy. As it takes parks a very long time, especially in this city, and I don't know, I'm assuming this would be a rat park, so it takes a very long time to get permitted, budgeted, funded, and underway. We propose a collective community interim healing action, mending the surface of the paved street, and over 50% of LA land in LA is paved with gold, in a process usually reserved for ceramic repair called kintsugi. As an action, it represents resilience and transcendence and can be extended infinitely into alleys or even beyond. It becomes a trail to follow to the park and a reminder under your feet of someone's hand carefully healing the ground. All right. Our next action is growing objects of rest and play, and in which students asked, what if LA had the first natural toxin-free compostable park made with natural materials like wood and fungi by the community and for the community? So this next action is actually a series of workshops where we would grow and create furniture that can live in the claimed park space in this pre-permanent park phase. Again, more details are in our supporting materials, but the students have designed instructions for a series of benches made from reclaimed wood planks that can be painted with artists at Graph Lab and then assembled collage style to create benches, seating areas. And they've also started creating, and we have a prototyping phase this spring that we've set up mold designs for stools grown from fungi and mycelial leather, as well as molds for playable elements that for children made from mycelium. And when the permanent park is finally built, these items can be passed to another vacant space as a gift or repurposed in an alternate location. If not relocated, anything grown from mycelium or fungi can be buried and rehydrated in order to provide nutrients for the future permanent planting in the park. Next, collective shade creation. What if we weave a collective fabric that provides shade for local residents? This step proposes a seasonal or annual simple collective weaving workshop to create shade panels and hammocks that can be added to the Proto Park space. All residents have a right to shade. The Pico Union neighborhood, like so many in Los Angeles, does not have substantial tree canopy, and the patterns of diminishing canopy over the past 10 years are clear, including trees being cut down to enable aerial helicopter surveillance. Thumbs down. Shade is an equity issue, and we know asphalt has an albedo score of 0, contributing to the urban heat island effect and making paved spaces up to 25 degrees hotter than surrounding areas with tree canopy. And we know the number of days above 85 degrees in Los Angeles is increasing annually. So shade is a real public health issue that we can meet with acts of collective creation. Number 5, feeding and foraging. What if we made a community garden entirely of native species that can thrive in urban Los Angeles space? In our supporting materials, you'll find a really lovely zine created by 2 of the students in the class, as well as workshop proposals for learning about native plants and their roles in local ecosystems. We see this proto park moment as a great opportunity to suggest future landscapes that participate in principles of restoration and climate adaptive ecologies. Number 6, imprinting culture. What if, hold on, oh, sorry about that. What if we collectively adorn our spaces out of love, care, and support for each other? So it's been so clear from the neighborhood conversations that we have been able to have so far what talent and pride there is in the cultural identity and histories of the neighborhood. And the workshop activities proposed under this umbrella of imprinting culture are a combination of peer skill sharing or invited artist leadership to make objects reflective of care and cultural identity. These objects can live in the park, go to people's homes, become gifts, or even be sellable to others. All right, step 7, filling with sound. What if we could create sustainable musical instruments for the enjoyment of park visitors? And what if field recordings became a way of preserving, exploring, and remixing community identities? So in this series of workshops, residents design and grow musical instruments from the fungal and mycelial materials. They record and remix sounds captured in the neighborhood into new soundtracks through accessible audio software workshops in partnership with the Playday Center. And our locally grown instruments can be used in youth drumming workshops. We're also beginning to grow our first drums in January. So we'll invite you all to come drum with us on the mycelial drums. And step 8, last step, is gathering to ask what if. What if, in this final community culminating act, we propose a community festival that is much more than a collection of booths, food, and music. It actively asks our core question: what if a creative current running through a community can contribute to agency, resilience, and local ownership? And it showcases through its activities and vendors how Pico Union and its mighty residents are answering this question for themselves every day. We have some little more like details of implementation and supporting materials around schedules, financial monetary needs, labor, time, thoughts, sketches around about implementation. And we deeply believe that metrics for success and rhythms evaluation would need to be set in collaboration with the community. So thank you. I'll stop here. Really, really grateful for everyone's time and energy, and hope some of these ideas can be of use for residents moving forward.
Thank you so much, Shannon, to you and your team. Invigorating to see. John Rigo, did you expect to hear the phrase musical mushrooms in this presentation? I don't know, maybe you did. John is a member of the CSO task force and is CSO of Sony Pictures Entertainment. John, we're a little tight on time, but over to you, 4 or 5 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick. First of all, Shannon, that's wonderful. Thank you. The thoughtfulness you and your team put into it is phenomenal. And there's a lot there, and hope everybody sort of caught on to it, right? I mean, the inclusion of biology in there, the cross-functional with your team and cross-functional and what you've created as solutions is wonderful. The philosophy that you brought to it, the beginner's mindset, always critical to remember that, especially when we are tapping into both community and student expertise. And obviously the creativity across the board was great. One question, within Sony, we're talking a lot about community, right? Communities of interest, but also the intersection of communities of interest. And I think that was also at the heart of what you were talking about. Implementation of communities of interest is really critical. So out of all those things, when you think about resilience and agency, not at the outset, but over the long term, which of those ideas were you really drawn to? Which one has that longevity to continue to create that community and agency within that neighborhood?
You mean of the sort of things that we offered?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's sort of philosophical, right? If you can build something in phases and a phase-wise, like more participation further on and a small amount of participation is really possible at the beginning. Like when you think about the kintsugi, you one person out there with a brush with one cup of gold paint could begin this process. And a festival is sort of this culminating thing where you kind of see everyone who's going to show up and either witness or stand up and say, I was a part of this in some way. And the idea is that like some combination of actions can kind of grow that momentum, and that we do pause and celebrate and say, wow, look at what we accomplished this year or these 2 years. And I think, I think there's some, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but there's something like between the very tiny single acts that have a kind of natural continuation to them, and the seasonal things like the once you've taught the weaving of hammocks, that knowledge is in the community. It might already be in the community, we just haven't been able to do that depth of research yet. And then like, you know, that can kind of be continued, and the hammock shapes can change if you end up waiting 5 years for a permanent park. And then these sort of annual rituals of gathering and seeing each other, I think like some combination of those scales, I think can point towards sustainability and contagion. I'm not sure if that's a very good answer, but that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you again, Shannon. Gloria, you've been listening to these various presentations. Like I say, this is an area that you know like the back of your hand. You have arranged for the transformation of the streetscape. Are you hopeful after what you've heard? Let us hear from you right now, if you would.
Okay, I think it's fabulous. All of you guys did a fantastic job. You all understood what Pico Union's all about. The teachers personally came and met all our block captains, because we have block captains. And the adjacent community, Westlake MacArthur's Park, is also part of this. So our next hard step, and I would like the teachers and everybody involved to be part of it, is how do we get the boys in the hood and the girls involved so they can make sure that they don't, they be part of the team, and then they find alternatives other than just joining gangs and selling drugs. So that's going to be our challenge, is to have the local, you know, we have 8 gangs within the boundaries of Pico Union. That's Olympic, the Freeway, and Hoover. And that one is kind of in the heart. It's cut in half. One half of the park belongs to 18th Street and the other one to MS. So we've been out there working with the boys. So we want to bring them in to see how the OGs can start being involved. And then we can save the ones that are in trouble and don't want it, but how do we get the ones that are in the borderline? So I'm really excited about this, that everybody capture our needs, our truly needs. This year, we buried about 7 children and a mother and a child that was stabbed by a son that couldn't get any mental health. So he's sitting in the mental health ward for the rest of his life, and his mother and nephew are dead. So it's really personal to us that we stop the killing and bring the universities to our communities. So I'm really thankful for that.
Gloria, thank you so much for your involvement. Thank you so much for what you're doing there. And we look forward to pushing ahead with you. Thank you so much again for all of the schools who have dedicated their full courses, studios, or labs over the fall term, at least, to create their Pando Days submissions. To the professors and to their students, the students being the ones who will, of course, inherit this future. Many thanks to the CSOs who've joined us today. Many thanks to co-executive producer Judith Parker and event producer Shelley Goldstein. Make sure you go to our website, pandopopulous.com, to see all the school project descriptions and read through their presentation materials that you've heard referenced today. They are being posted on a rolling basis along with the premiere recordings. Pando Days was conceived with the help of the CSO Strategic Task Force and made possible by the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation. Make sure you join us tomorrow where we have the open call category, but with the presenting schools having chosen, both of them, chosen to focus on food. So tomorrow you'll hear from Cal Poly Pomona and from Cal State Northridge. I love all that they're up to, and I'm sure you will, and you won't want to miss it. Thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks.